Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Jeremy Weiss Homes Team channel here on YouTube. And welcome to week number 9 of our 10-week series, How to Buy a Great Home here in Central Maryland. So this week, we're going to talk about closing. That's the day everybody's really excited for. It's the day where you get to become a homeowner, and it's going to be a really, really exciting day. So if you've missed all the rest of our videos, do us a favor and go back on the channel. You can see we've got from week 1 all the way up through this week, which is week number 9. And we're going to have one more week next week. And then if you'd like, please hit that subscribe button as well. That way you know whenever our newest videos come out on the channel. So we've gone through all of the past 8 weeks through this process up to becoming a homeowner, and today is the day when this actually gets to take place and this becomes a reality for you. So leading up to today, we've gone through the whole process with the loan and the title. The lender has given us our clear to close, and we are really excited for today. So one of the things that we're going to do before we get to closing is we're actually going to do a walkthrough of the home prior to closing. Okay, this can be done anytime up to 5 days prior to closing, but the whole purpose of this walkthrough is just for you as the buyer to re-inspect the home one more time to make sure that the home is indeed in the condition and it is indeed the way that you are intending to buy it. Now, the other thing that we do during these walkthroughs is we make sure that if we have any negotiated repairs, that those repairs are made prior to closing. So we just double check on those things to make sure those are all done satisfactorily. Now, getting up to closing, there's a couple things that are super important. One of those things is talking with our lender, figuring out how much money we need to bring to the closing table. Okay, that's all going to be dependent on your loan and your loan program and down payment and all those conversations that you've already had with your lender to make sure that you are really and truly prepared for closing. The thing that's super important, though, that we need to know prior to closing is the lender and title company are going to give you something called wiring instructions. Okay, and those wiring instructions are the information that you need in order to be able to have the money sent from the bank for your loan prior to closing. Now, one thing that's super critical to know, there is something called wire fraud that is out there. Title companies will never, ever, ever change your wiring instructions by email. So if you get an email prior to closing telling you that your wiring instructions have changed, the first thing that you should do is call the title company, because you need to verify with them the exact information for the wire for your closing. If it's determined that this email is fraudulent, then they'll give you further guidance about where to send that email to be able to report it. The reason this is so important, guys, is if your wire is fraudulently intercepted, guess what? You could probably lose this home, because it is super, super, super difficult for us to get this money back. Okay, it's very unlikely actually that we get it back for you. So that money will be lost and gone forever, as they say. So really, really important. Make sure you verify those closing instructions or those wiring instructions to prevent wire fraud. Now, for the money that you have to bring to closing, you can do it in one of two ways. That can either be wired to the title company like we talked about, or you can get certified funds from the bank. And what that is a cashier's check. Okay, whatever works for you is perfectly fine with us. Obviously, title companies like wires just because it's easier. You don't have to worry about carrying a check back and forth. But otherwise, a certified check is the only other way. Okay, because they have to be certified funds. The other thing that's super important that you bring to closing is you want to make sure you bring your photo ID. Okay, so do yourself a favor. As we're going through this process, check your ID. Make sure your driver's license or whatever ID you're using is not expired. Because if it is expired, you're going to need to get it renewed prior to closing. Closing title companies here will not allow you to close with an expired ID. So you got to make sure that you have an ID that's ready to go for closing. So that's super, super important. So when we get to closing, we're going to sit down at the title company. They're going to have a nice table there. And generally, you as the buyer are going to sit on one side of the table. And then me as your agent, we're going to sit next to you to make sure that if you have any questions, we're there to answer them for you. Depending on the closing, the seller may or may not be there. Prior to closing, it was usually pretty customary that the buyer and seller both sat down at the same time and everybody signed all the paperwork together. Since COVID, it's become more and more the case where a seller will simply pre-sign. So the seller will come in and sign on their time. And then when the buyer actually sits down, then everything is closed at that point in time. But it's very possible that the seller or the buyer and seller may never meet during this transaction. Now, the representative from the title company will sit there with you. They generally will sit kind of at the head of the table. And what they will do is they will talk to you and they will explain to you the documents that you're about to sign. Okay. Obviously, these are all legal documents. They've all been put together by attorneys, and they're all, forms for different things. A bulk of the paperwork that you're going to sign is actually for the lender. Okay, it may be things verifying things that you've sent to the lender already, verifications of verifications, and certifications of certifications, and on and on. However, there's a couple of things that are super important. So generally, the first thing that the lender is going to, or that the title company is going to do, the title representative, is they're going to review your loan details with you. Okay, they're going to go over something called your closing disclosure and your ALTA statement. The closing disclosure is going to be provided to you and has to be provided to you no less than 3 days prior to closing. So you have to have it 3 days prior to closing. That is a federal rule. If you do not have it, then we actually have to delay closing. There's nothing we can do to stop that. So the lender will, so you will have gone over all of these figures already. They will go over them with you again just to be sure that everything is the same as you believe it that it should be. And then they will have you sign off on all of these things. Okay. The ALTA is the same thing as your closing disclosure, just in a different format. And they will go over all of that with you. It's the same numbers. They can't move any decimal places. They can't change any numbers. The other things that you're going to sign that are super important is you're going to sign the deed. Okay. And that deed of trust is what secures the mortgage against the property for you. Then the title company will take that, and I'll explain what they're going to do with it in just a few minutes. And then the other thing that you're going to sign is you're going to sign something called the note or the promissory note. And the note is your promise to repay your loan over the course of 30 years or however long it takes you. Both of those are then taken, and the title company will take them and they will take them to the courthouse, and then they will record them down at the courthouse. We'll talk more about this next week when we talk about week 10, which is kind of what happens after closing. Okay. Once you get through all of the documents and all of the lender documents, your hand's going to be tired because you've signed so many documents. But then, congratulations, you are officially a homeowner. We will make sure we will give you guys the keys to your new home, and you are free to go enjoy your new home in your comfort. You're free to make it your own, whatever you'd like to do within all the rules and regulations of those things. But you are now officially a homeowner. So congratulations. This is really huge. And obviously you've bought a home, and now there's still more stuff that has to go on. Okay. That's why I said we have a 10-week process here. And next week we're going to cover what happens after closing, because there are things that happen after closing that you as a homeowner should be aware of. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. So guys, congratulations. You've bought your home. It's a happy day. You get to take pictures. We have, the fancy key that everybody gets to take the pictures with. Yay, we bought a home. Okay, pop some champagne. It's going to be a great day. And then comes the process of moving in. Okay. So guys, please If you love our channel, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button. That way you know whenever our newest video is going to come out. Also, give us a thumbs up on the bottom there as well. Helps just with that Facebook or with that YouTube algorithm. So that really helps us as well. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in this week to week 9 of How to Buy a Great Home here in Central Maryland. And my name's Jeremy, and we look forward to seeing you guys next week on week 10 of How to Buy a Great Home here in Central Maryland, where we'll talk about everything that happens after closing. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great one.